Okay, so this part of the globe was, when it was colonized by the French, it was called New France. And in 1759, the English were at war. It was the part of the 7 Years' War, so it lasted 7 years. In 1759, on the Plains of Abraham, which is in what's now Quebec City, the English and the French were at war for control of this region, and the English won. So for a lot of people, Je me souviens, which we talk about in the next video, refers in part to the defeat of the French in at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. Both Montcalm and Wolfe, who were the leaders of the two sides, both of them died as a result of that battle. Anyway, so there's a little bit of an interesting history, which I'll just very quickly talk about. There was an agreement. Actually, I'm going to throw up a monument. This is a very important monument. So if the English win in this epic battle to take control of this region, and they want to build a monument, the English want to build a monument to commemorate that battle, what do you think it's going to look like? Okay, just take a minute. So what do you think? What kind of monument are they going to make? What would you expect? Okay, so now I'm going to show you the monument that was made. So we can read this monument for the message it's trying to send. So remember I talked about objectives. So what is the objective with this monument? So I'm not going to answer that. I want you to think about it, and we'll talk about that in class on Tuesday. All right, so the English now officially control this region, and it gets to be called Lower Canada, and then Upper Canada, and then eventually there's Confederation in 1867, and it's called Canada. And within Canada is the province of Quebec. Now, Quebec has never really submitted to the English. They come to an understanding after the defeat at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, where the French are, they keep their church, they keep their civil code, their legal system, and of course their culture and their language, right? But they are subservient to the English. And in fact, a study was done after World War II, so like the 1950s rather, which showed that the French were poorer economically than the English. In fact, the English owned all the industry in Quebec. Quebec was basically owned by the English, and Quebecers were really just the laborers. And it's complicated why it was that way, but it has something to do with the Catholic Church. So in the same period, 1950s and 60s, a lot of Quebecers, especially Quebec intellectuals, are just fed up. They're completely fed up with their own subservience, but they're also fed up with the control the church has over their own lives. So this period is known as the Quiet Revolution, but it wasn't actually very quiet. It was quite loud. It was also a period when you might have heard of the Flq. So they were a terrorist group here in Quebec. And one of the things that the Flq did, one of their strategies, was to use violence, bombs in particular. A lot of people were using bombs, a lot of radical activists were using bombs in this particular period. And the Flq attacked sites of capitalism. So the enemy was not the English, the enemy was capitalists. And so Francophone or Quebecois capitalists were also subject to Flq bombings. This is a bombing that took place in Quebec City. This is was the Queen Victoria. Obviously a symbol of English domination. So probably not done by the Flq. Somebody took advantage of the moment when bombing was very popular to attack this symbol of English domination. So statues, the controversies around statues and attacking them as monuments of colonial oppression is not a new thing, and it's not new to Quebec, certainly. So, okay, so 1950s and 60s, there's the rise of both a terrorist group, which is very radical in its views and its actions, but and then out of that emerges the Parti Québécois, which becomes a bit more subdued in its politics, breaks away from the more radical left, the more radical contingent, and becomes a respectable political party. And in 1976, they win the provincial election. René Lévesque is the is the leader of that party. And it's quite a shock across Canada because it's a party for an independent Quebec. And so does this mean Quebec's going to separate? And it raised all kinds of constitutional questions. But for Je me souviens, that we're going to talk about that in the next one. So what though, for our purposes, it's the rise of a kind of Quebecois pride. So up until this point in history, French Canadians are called French Canadian, but French Canadians embrace the term Quebecois. So it means like you're not Canadian, and it's not just French either. It's Quebecois, so it's a specific culture. It's not just a language of French, but it's a culture and a history, and a really proud history. So it's about reclaiming their pride, but it's also taking back the province away from English domination. So not just political domination, but also economic domination. So the Parti Québécois introduces this kind of pride and instills this kind of pride, and the FLQ does too, actually. And it creates this real tension between Anglophone Quebecers and French Quebecers. Quebec want to basically take Quebec back. And there's a lot of hostility toward the English, and there's a lot of English people here don't speak French at all. And they're really two separate cultures. But French people have to speak both languages because the language of the workplace was English. So if you're from a minority group, if you're speaking of the language at home, you'll be very familiar with that dynamic and how that plays out. So, Je me souviens, it's part of a very distinct political moment in which Quebecers, the Québécois, rise up in pride, and as part of this moment, right, of Black national pride. Similarly, they are, and they even borrow some of the language and some of the symbols to talk about their own identity and their own experience of oppression within English Canada. So hopefully that quicken history gives you a little bit of the background, the context for what it is I'm going to talk about, or we're going to learn in the next video. And if not, sharpen your pencils, write down your questions, and bring them to class. Okay, see you in the next video.